I want to go over my review of Ghostbusters Afterlife, which again is premiering Thursday night. It starts in theaters, only in theaters, on Friday, November 19th. I had the opportunity to go attend a advanced screening from our good friends at Allied Global Marketing. I got the opportunity to attend through work, and so yeah, I got to see it a couple days before other folks. So what I thought I would do is just kind of share some, again, very basic non-spoiler stuff. So I'm not going to talk about it. I'm not going to talk about the plot. I am really just going to kind of tell you whether I liked it or not, and kind of what I thought about it. So if this is your time to punch out, have a great night. Thank you so much for hanging out with us here on the live stream. And then after you go see the movie, hopefully you come back and pick this up on a podcast and listen to the review after you've seen the movie. And then like I said previously, it's like maybe I'll do I don't know, maybe a spoiler podcast. Maybe I'll jump on someone else's podcast. I don't really know. I haven't really thought about that too much yet. So so I guess this is your fair and final warning. 3, 2, 1. What did I think of Ghostbusters Afterlife? I liked it. I liked it fine. I think it's good. I don't think it's great, but I do think it is serviceable. It's enjoyable, and more importantly, it's approachable. And the thing that there was a few things that have been kind of swimming in my head in the days since I saw the movie, and even while I was watching it. I don't know at what point Ghostbusters became this huge nostalgia property that folks had so much reverence for. Now, I think this is an age thing. So let me kind of explain a little bit, and I'll kind of make my case as I go. So in 1984, I'd have been 5. So Ghostbusters was too adult for me, way over my head. And Ghostbusters the first in itself is kind of an odd movie to fit in a box, to articulate what it is. Is it a comedy? Yes. Is it a sci-fi action drama? Probably. Sure, I guess. But what it isn't is any one thing. And one thing that I think that it is not is kid-friendly. I think there's a certain level of maturity to it. Because like at one point, well, I don't want to be graphic. I mean, you know the scene involving Dan Aykroyd's character and that ghost and what happens to him. And then this is a movie that's kind of like for kids, I guess. And that's so there's this. So the movie comes out, and it's kind of like a more mature comedy type thing. Then the sequel comes out, and it's definitely more kid-friendly. Then the cartoons come out and the toys come out. I mean, this is very much so a property that I think that had been co-opted by toy companies and cartoons folks and made into a children's property, where I don't think the original intent of the original Ghostbusters was for it to be a children's property, but that's certainly what it became. I don't have that much nostalgia or even all that much affection for Ghostbusters as a property. I like the original movie. I remember I saw that second one when it was in theaters, and I remember being into it when I was a kid. Um, I believe that was like right around 1989. So maybe that was around like Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, maybe Star Trek 5. And so I remember that being one of the movies in that category that I was kind of into. You know, it's like I had kids storybook and all of that other stuff. But I was at that weird age where by the time like the toys and the cartoons were around, for some reason it didn't click with me. It clicked with my younger cousin in the same way that Ninja Turtles went. Actually, that's a better way of putting it. I think my relationship with Ghostbusters is very similar to my relationship with Ninja Turtles. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles is not really my jam. I mean, I like it fine, and I have a lot of friends that it is very much their jam, and you know, I don't have a bad thing to say about that. Likewise, I don't have a bad thing to say about folks that say Ghostbusters is their jam. Um, so I don't have anything bad to say to folks that say that Ghostbusters is their jam. It just isn't my jam. And what I don't know is at what point Ghostbusters got into that same echelon of valued nostalgia properties in the same way that say like you know, now folks talk about Ghostbusters kind of in the same way that we talk about Back to the Future. And I I like Ghostbusters fine. In fact, I told a story back during the winter where like I was snowed in. I was staying at a hotel for work right across from the radio station that I work at, and I remember trudging in the snow to try to find a restaurant to eat at and maybe get an adult beverage. And I come across this pizza joint um, on Queen Anne called Big Mario's Pizza. They have like the giant flat New York style pizza, really good stuff. It was the only place that opened. They had a bar, and that's where I spend my snowbound evening. But as I'm sitting there scarfing on pizzas and drinking beers, I appreciated the decor of the bar in that the entirety of the bar was lined with videotapes. Just VHS tapes as far as the eye could see piled high. And at one point the bartender throws in a VHS tape into this 19-inch CRT TV, well, into the VCR connected to the CRT TV, and it was Ghostbusters. And it was a great experience to watch. Like, I mean, I stuck around like maybe like for like the first half of the movie. I don't know, maybe like 40 minutes or something like that. Had another round, another slice, and I watched Ghostbusters Snowbound. It's kind of nice. Hadn't watched it for a while, and it was just kind of like a cool experience. But reflecting on that, having watched this Ghostbusters Afterlife, it makes me realize that that intangibility about Ghostbusters as a property, and certainly the first one as a movie, in terms of like what we think of it, how we interact with it, and what a sequel to that would look like. Ghostbusters 2 didn't really resonate. It was kind of a flop. The reboot in 2016, aka the quote unquote girl Ghostbusters, that's when, very similar to like we saw recently with Masters of the Universe Revelation, the Kevin Smith show run Netflix cartoon, which is kind of a extension of the original He-Man cartoon, and suddenly there is a vocal, loud fan base that's apparently been there the whole time. Because as soon as that Masters of the Universe cartoon came out, suddenly everybody's been a He-Man fan this whole time, and they're so much of a fan that they're offended because there's like gaga girls in there, and it's the same thing with Ghostbusters. So like we found out in 2016 that apparently there's a huge and vocal and obnoxious Ghostbusters fan base. Very puzzling. So that movie is met with less than favorable reception. Doesn't do well at the box office, and Ghostbusters kind of goes back into franchise jail. And then Jason Reitman comes around, son of Ivan Reitman, the director of Ghostbusters, and he is going to make a sequel, a legacy sequel, that is billed as quote unquote giving it back to the fans. And fan service is, I don't know, I keep wanting to say a double-edged sword, and I don't know if that's accurate. I think it's more like a honestly, I don't know. Fan service is just such a tricky thing, because it's like, are you pandering to a fan base, or are you trying to make a good movie? So for me, that was a little bit of a red flag in, giving it back to the fans. And going into the movie, I had very low expectations. I had seen, the same teasers, I had seen trailers, and there was just nothing that really kind of amped me up. And really, it was, the overwhelming feeling I had was like, who is this movie for? And that was the mystery I was trying to solve going into this movie. So I go to see Ghostbusters Afterlife. I have low expectations, but an open mind. And as I said, I liked it. It's fun, it's palatable, it's approachable. This is Ghostbusters done using the Marvel method. I've called this out on Twitter as Marvel's Ghostbusters, that kind of thing. In that it's very much in that Marvel MCU formula, where it takes a outlandish, dramatic concept, grounds it to an extent, but also treats it very earnestly, but is also light on its feet and has comedic elements. So when I say things like palatable and approachable, that's what I mean. That's kind of the meter stick for well, not just the meter stick, but the blueprint for these types of movies. It feels like a Marvel movie in a lot of the best ways. I'll tell you now that, and this is just advice, I'm not going to spoil them, but there are 2 post-credit scenes. There's like a mid-credit scene, and then there's a post-credit scene. So stick around. And again, I without saying what they are worth your time. If you're in for this. So, who is this movie for? This is a movie that is for fans. Well, I mean, it's for fans of Ghostbusters. Start with that. It's also for younger audiences that want to engage with a cool concept. Busting ghosts is pretty darn cool. And it has that cachet of being a legacy property. And it's for families. And it's a, again, I keep floating the terms approachable and palatable. I don't think that Ghostbusters, the first, is family friendly. I think it's a little too crude for younger audiences. Ghostbusters Afterlife, on the other hand, is built for those younger audiences. This is a movie to where you, as perhaps a 40-something-year-old person that loved Ghostbusters when you were a kid and now have kids of your own, this is a movie for you and your family. And I say that as a compliment. That's actually to the movie's credit. This but what's interesting though about what Ghostbusters is, with that kind of adult edge to it, this movie is a sequel to Ghostbusters in a lot of ways, because in a lot of ways it is very much the legacy sequel blueprint. This is the Force Awakens of Ghostbusters. I have more thoughts on that in a sec, but more than being a sequel to Ghostbusters, this is a sequel to what folks think they remember and think they perceive about what Ghostbusters is. Not necessarily specifically what Ghostbusters actually is. So there's no oral sex with ghosts in a Ghostbusters Afterlife. Which is fine, because because I'm sure there have been anniversary screenings of Ghostbusters the first, and folks being all like, "Hey man, I got kids here," so that there are some of those rougher elements that or more mature elements that are not necessarily appropriate for younger audiences. This movie very much is appropriate for younger fans. I talked about, I mentioned Force Awakens earlier, and Force Awakens is really kind of like, at this point, kind of become the measurement or example, poster child, of what one of these legacy sequels either could be, should be, or is. And I think that's what these types of legacy sequels are measured against. And a legacy sequel is basically, it's a sequel to a movie that incorporates real life time jump. So, much like Star Wars The Force Awakens, Ghostbusters Afterlife does pick up some 35 years after the events of the first movie. Another type of legacy sequel is Halloween 2018, that basically ignores all of the sequels that folks don't like and sequelizes the original movie that everyone did like. So Ghostbusters Afterlife is not specifically Halloween 2018, but it dabbles. The better comparison is Force Awakens, and I feel like Ghostbusters Afterlife does The Force Awakens better than The Force Awakens did. And I think that's good. It services fans of all stripes. It services fans that grew up with this. It services fans that grew up with this, that have kids, that want to bring their kids. And I think it services current contemporary fans that, maybe they've it's a sequel to what folks think Ghostbusters is. And I've repeated myself a couple times on that, so I'm going to kind of move on from that. But it's very much in that formula. I do want to talk about the performances, because I think the cast is a mixed bag. The breakout star far and away is Mckenna Grace, who plays Egon's granddaughter, and that's not a spoiler because that's all over the trailers. And she's really kind of the glue that holds this movie together. It's very much on her shoulders, which is a lot to ask of a young actor, and I think she does it very well. She has just enough of that Harold Ramis awkwardness, and it's a pretty good performance, and while still being very serviceable. Finn Wolfhard from the Stranger Things shows up in here as well. He is Phoebe's brother, McKenna Grace's character, and that brings up that kind of brings up a elephant in the room with regards to Ghostbusters Afterlife. Is it so? I think part of, I mentioned that palatability and approachability and appetite for another Ghostbusters movie. And I think that's kind of drawn from the popularity of Stranger Things, because, Stranger Things really is kind of like a distillation of 80s nostalgia. It borrows a lot from Spielberg, and it touches on Ghostbusters, so much so to where that's actually a plot element in the second season, where the characters are literally wearing Ghostbusters outfits. But so one of the questions becomes, is this Ghostbusters with Stranger Things in it, or is it Stranger Things with Ghostbusters? And the answer to that is shrug yes, because bless old Finn Wolfhard for really still being connected and being part of the zeitgeist in terms of being attached to these types of projects. It's oh, hey, it's the kids from Stranger Things. So basically this is a Stranger Things thing. I think he brings a degree of fandom with him. And in terms of who is this movie for? Well, it's for fans of Stranger Things. It's very, very compatible and very one-to-one. So you could as a younger fan watch Stranger Things and then go watch Ghostbusters Afterlife and be just fine. It is interesting, though, now that he's getting older and kind of getting into that awkward teen phase, as opposed to that adorable yet foul-mouthed child actor phase, how his career is going to go. And I think in a sense, he plays a pretty decent rendition of a teenage version of his character from Stranger Things. He's one of those actors that's he's just playing himself, which is fine. He's totally fine. There's Paul Rudd's in this movie, and he's fine. He's Paul Rudding all up and down the joint. I did make a comparison to a friend of mine at work about his performance and his characterization. And my friend told me that that's explicitly a spoiler. And I'm like, oh, shoot. I did that accidentally. So I'm not going to share that insight here. But he's it's not that he's miscast. It's not that he's misused. But it is a weird performance. It is both at once a very Paul Rudd performance, but also not a Paul Rudd performance. It's like this character should be played by somebody else. Yeah, because like, you know, if you cast somebody that has at one time been the sexiest man alive, and he is nebbish and nerdy, that just doesn't quite doesn't quite square. There is one character that I do want to talk about. If there was anything that I didn't like in this movie, there is one character. He's played by a young actor named Logan Kim, and this isn't his fault, but he plays a character called Podcast. That is literally the character's name, and he he's a podcaster of some kind, and that's a real damn problem for me. One, because I think the references that they go through with regards to his character and what he does makes the screenplay feel very dated. I don't remember when this movie was written, but I know it was written a while ago, and then there was a bunch of like production delays, then the Rona happened, and really the jokes and humor that come from this character, both from him and at his expense, are jokes from 2017. I guess if I had to put the humor feels very dated. Obviously I do bring a bit of baggage and sensitivity to it, being a podcaster myself, but I mean, I can laugh at this weird, obnoxious, goofy space of content creation and podcasting. It just doesn't address it very well, for my opinion. But this is also, and it's a real consider the source situation. You also have to keep in mind, I'm the guy that got upset about a bubble guts medication, IBS medication that portrays in their commercial a couple quote unquote podcasters that are doing some kind of weird live stream video. Well, I don't think it's live, but some kind of thing in their garage. And I went on like this massive Twitter rant about how like everything is wrong in the representation of that. So side tangent, and you might have experienced this as well, but once you do something, whether it's as a hobby or as a job, and unfortunately I have the burden of both. You know, my job is working at a radio station, and I'm a independent podcaster for funsies. Once you become experienced in some kind of field, it's hard to look at entertainment that portrays that field. So anytime like a radio station is depicted on TV or in movies, my hackles immediately go up. When there's talk of podcasts and podcasters, my hackles go up. I had to stop watching A Million Little Things. I used to be a fan of that show, but then one of the characters has started as a podcaster and has become a radio host, and the incongruities and misrepresentations bothered me so much. It was actually like causing me like legit stress, to where it's like I had to stop watching it because it's, well, I mean, also the show got really dumb and really bad. I don't need a murder mystery folded in with my show about friendship and dealing with grief, but that's neither here nor there. But my point being is that I'm sensitive to things like that. So as soon as this character on screen represents himself and saying, well, you know, they call me podcast, and it's just like, I almost embarrassed the folks I was with because I did like the audible sigh and folded my arms and made a real production of it. Made really obnoxious. Don't go to movies with me. But yeah, just again, there's other things I could get into that would be spoilery, but basically, like it's when podcasting was more huge, I would say, like with the popularity of Serial and the rise of true crime, maybe even like some of like the serialized drama stuff like Night Vale, to even like the rise of Joe Rogan, to where, you know, and Adam Carolla and Mark Maron, WTF and all of that other stuff. It feels like, of course, podcasting is a thing that's a thing now, but it feels like now it's less of a novelty and more, whereas like in 2017, 2015, 2016, I don't know, it felt like that's something you would want to bake into your edgy screenplay where you're trying to be funny. So yeah, I mean that character really didn't work for me. There's also a mom character that's that's especially obnoxious that I really didn't like. That really, in a sense, over analyzing things. Again, this is so frustrating. It's like, in a sense, I'm watching the movie and I'm like, do the screenwriters have an issue with lady people? Because this character is written in a way that makes me wonder, either that or they're just leaning into very uncomfortable tropes that that kind of aren't great. The character is very underserviced and very undercooked. So I'll just kind of leave that there. But the visual effects are top notch. It looks great. I would say of the music, of the score, that like and I mentioned that this is in the Marvel method, right? So anytime there's a callback to something, to some kind of reference, even if you don't know the reference because maybe you're a casual fan or you're a new fan, the music will let you know that that's something that's something. Like, you know, there are various artifacts that turn up, and every time one of those references happens, the music swells and the camera lingers, and whether you know what the specific reference is or not, you know that that's something that's something. Very heavy-handed, which cuts both ways. On one hand, the heavy-handedness makes it approachable. So, like, let's say you've never seen Ghostbusters before. You can enjoy this movie because it gives you everything that you need. And it explains everything that you need. I don't know if that's necessarily the case with Force Awakens. I haven't watched it for a while, so I don't remember how approachable it is for a story that takes place 30 years after Return of the Jedi. This gives you everything you need. And as such is approachable. And with the music cues, it holds your hand, so like it'll just, say, come along. And in a lot of ways, like those Marvel movies do, it's like, lingering on a, character's name on a ledger or something like that, to where it's like you might not know exactly what that is, but like the camera is lingering there for some reason, and the and again the music swells to let you know that that's what's happening. But rather than being mad about it, I actually saw that as kind of like a strength in a weird kind of way. So but yeah, it's totally fine. Did it blow my hair back? No. Was I disappointed? No. Did I have a good time watching it? Definitely. Would I recommend it? Yeah. Would I go again? Probably not. So it's a mixed bag of palatable and fineness. It's fine. And that's the first thing I said. It's like, so when we get out of the press screening, there are nice folks with clipboards, and they want like a couple snippets from you. And I shared with them the things that I just said about the approachability and who it's for and things like that. And but the first words out of my mouth were, it's fine. It's fine. There is, now that's a spoiler. Because I'm trying to think of, yeah, and that's the other thing too. It's like, toys and action figures have spoiled things. So I'm not really going to get into those because not everybody is exposed to the toy market. So I'm just going to leave it there. But so yeah, I liked it. It's fine. And I could do with more. If there's a sequel, I could show up for it. Sure. Yeah, it's totally fine. In a lot of the ways that the latter Marvel movies have been fine. I mean, I told you that I didn't like Eternals, but that's my particular mileage. I think the consensus is it's fine. And I don't know what that means about where we're at in our current state of movies. I can't litigate this here, but one of the things that's been going through my mind over the last several months is trying to articulate what is a movie. At a time where something like Red Notice is on Netflix, and it's like a $200 million movie, but it looks cheap as hell, but it has A-list talent, and it's just yeah, it's just very, movies are kind of like in a weird, odd state. And every once in a while I'll get something like Last Night in Soho that kind of blew my hair back, but I was predetermined to want to like that, so I had a lot of goodwill I extended to it. I can't remember the last time a movie just like really blasted my hair back. I guess and it's not a superhero movie. I think the last movie that did that was 1917. Because I appreciated the ambitiousness of the one shot concept. I like Last Night in Soho because I like Edgar Wright's hyper stylization. I can't remember the last time a superhero movie made me excited. I talked about Black Widow. It's fine. I don't dislike it, but I mean, it's, it's whatever. And it feels like that's kind of the state that we're in with these types of movies. It's just kind of like a weird sameness, a lot of grayness. I watched the trailer for that Spider-Man No Way Home. No Way Home, Far From Home, Homeschooled, Work From Home. I don't know. I don't remember what it's called. And I felt nothing. I'm going to go watch it. It looks fine. I'm sure I'll like it just fine. But you would think that I would be something like the concept of a multiverse and bringing in all these different versions of all of these old characters would stir something in me and make me excited. And it doesn't. All it does is, for my cynical perspective, reminds me that in the Marvel era, they've done nothing to fill out Spider-Man's rogues gallery. So he's got no bad guys, and they have to go back to the old movies to get him some bad guys, because aside from Michael Keaton, he doesn't have no bad guys. That's a problem. Too busy hanging out with the Avengers to where after 3 movies, he doesn't have his own rogues gallery. That's a problem. So I've drifted. I guess I was thinking about that because of the Sony connection and the Marvel stuff. So yeah, in brief, Ghostbusters Afterlife is it's a Marvel movie with Ghostbusters in all of the best and worst ways. It is Star Wars The Force Awakens for Ghostbusters. And for me, it does the Force Awakens trope better than the Force Awakens did. And so, yeah, so that's, go see it if you want. I'm not going to hard recommend it. But likewise, unlike with Eternals, I'm not going to wave you away from it either. There is a lot to enjoy here. And again, it's fun. It's approachable. It's light on its feet. It's not a sequel to Ghostbusters. It's a sequel to what we think we remember Ghostbusters is, and that's totally fine. And that's totally acceptable. Does that mean it's given back to the fans? Possibly. Your mileage might vary. Let me know in the comments. Drop me a note. Let me know what you think, and maybe I'll do another episode or something related to Ghostbusters. If I pop on somebody else's podcast, I'll let you know about it. But I think that is about all I have to say about that. And that will wrap things up for this particular episode. Thank you so much for listening and for hanging out. I really appreciate it. And if you want to listen to all of my past shows, you could subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Google Podcasts, Spotify, TuneIn, or wherever the heck else you listen to your podcast, Mike Seibert Radio. And you could check out the full show archive out on SoundCloud, 5 years and over 300 episodes worth of shows out there. And you can become a Mike Cybertronian and join the MSRP Friends and Fans Facebook group and tune in for another Mike Seibert Radio podcast live stream on Twitter, YouTube, Twitch, and Facebook Live. And don't miss the Talkin' Rocky Forecast coming up next Sunday, November 28th at 2:00 p.m. Pacific time, where me and some of my best good friends are going to talk about all versions of Rocky IV, including the brand new director's cut. You don't want to miss that, and that's a good way to kind of cap off your Thanksgiving weekend. Like, share, rate, and review the show. Let us know what you like and what you'd like to hear more of in the future. My name is Mike. This has been Mike Seibert Radio, and until next time, till all are one, make good choices.
You've been listening to the Mike Seibert Radio Podcast. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram by searching at Mike Seibert Radio. Email us at MikeSeibertRadio@gmail.com. The spelling on that, of course, is SEI. Call into the voicemail hotline at 231-224-MIKE. Once again, that's 231-224-6453. Special thanks to Michael Geisler for our theme music. For more like it, check out bydoormusic.com. This has been a Mike Seibert radio production.